Let's talk about Joe McCarthy for a little. This was a self-made man, right?
Very much so. He was all a bootstrapper. Came from hard scrabble beginnings, upstate Wisconsin. I think he might have been the only member of his family that ever went to college, and he barely got through high school. He had lots of jobs as a teenager, and he had not been to high school at all, and at the age of 20, and it was actually the fall he turned 20, he decided he needed to get an education if he was going to make something of himself. And he went to a nearby high school and completed 4 years of schooling in 9 months and graduated with honors and high grades and so forth, and then went from there to Marquette, the Jesuit University of Milwaukee, went to Marquette, got his law degree at Marquette, and in 1935 hung out his shingle upstate Wisconsin. But this was right in the middle of the Depression. At that time, hard to make a living as anything, and much less a small town lawyer, brand new lawyer in upstate Wisconsin. He got the idea of running for public office, and he ran for a circuit judgeship in that area of Wisconsin, won against a much older opponent, and became the youngest circuit judge in the state of Wisconsin. Served in that capacity for, I guess he got elected in 1939, served there for maybe 3 or 4 years. War came along. 1942, he was 33 years old, exempt from the draft because of his judgeship and to some degree for age, although they were drafting people in their 30s during the war. And he nevertheless went into the Marines, enlisted in the Marines, and went to the South Pacific in a combat zone where he didn't have to go. He could have evaded the draft altogether or gotten some kind of chairborne duty on the home front. Did not. Went into combat zone where he was an intelligence officer debriefing pilots in combat with the Japanese, and came back from the war. He tried an absentee campaign when he was still in the Marines. He got back in 1946. He ran in the Republican primary against a man named Robert M. LaFollette, Jr., who was the incumbent Republican senator from Wisconsin. Nobody gave McCarthy a chance in that election. The LaFollettes were to Wisconsin what the Kennedys would later be to Massachusetts. McCarthy won an upset against LaFollette and then cruised home to victory in the fall. So he was a guy, and he was the youngest U.S. senator when he got elected. He was only 38 in January 1947 when he reported to duty in the U.S. Senate. So he was totally a self-made man that had no advantages or privileges whatsoever, but he did have he had certain attributes which you would never know to read some of the standard history. He was very smart. He had a nearly photographic memory, and this is attested in some of the issues. And this was an attribute that then came into play when he got into all this fighting over communists in the government, because he was able to absorb masses of information in a hurry. Sometimes he made mistakes, and I point some of those out in my book. But having written this book, it took me longer to write this book about Joe McCarthy's career than it took him to do it. His entire public career, in terms of fighting communism, lasted from 1950 to the end of early 1950 to the end of 1954. It took me longer than that to write the book.
This incredible self-made man who, between the time he finished high school in a matter of months, and when he was 38 and he arrived in the Senate, he had this meteoric rise in life. Out of nowhere, he has this meteoric rise.
Absolutely.